Hey guys, welcome to the Big Talk with Austin. I'm so excited for this episode. We do not have a lot to talk about because not a lot happened, this week necessary. The PlayStation 5 reveal did happen, but at this time of this recording, of the podcast I'm going to be showing you, it will be pre-recorded back on Tuesday. Right at this moment, it's recorded now on Thursday, so I can get this intro and outro done, and so you guys can have all this stuff. So we're not going to be able to talk about the PS5 and all the games that are coming out, but the next episode, with a big special guest, will be coming on to me, joining me onto that one. We got a lot of stuff to talk about on that episode. We'll be talking about some of the PS5 as well on that. I might do a separate video on my channel just about the PS5. I don't know, but I'm so excited just for this episode. There's a lot of stuff coming up in the future. But anyway, let's get right into it. Have you seen Spider-Man: Far From Home?
Yes, I have. Great movie.
Um, so at the end of that movie, we get to see JK Simmons from the Raimi Spider-Mans. And so people have been asking him is if he will ever return into the next Spider-Man movie. And he's been saying we don't know at this moment, but he would love to come back. But I think, in my opinion, he will return because if you have seen Venom, his son is in that movie at the beginning, and I don't how long that's been out for 2 years now. So I'm not going to spoil anything else, but his son's in the movie. Something happens to his son too. So in that scenario, that would kind of upset J.K. Simmons and somehow blame Spider-Man because he really dislikes Spider-Man, and so he could be the next step to the Sinister Six, which is a movie that Sony has been trying to do for years. But what's your theory on all of this?
Not sure. I mean, are we talking in terms of the actor or just JJJ being in the movie in general?
Well, you can talk about both if you want. I was talking about the movie, like him as the actor, because he would love to return as J.K. Simmons, because he even voice acted him in the Spider-Man game, so that came out a few years back on PS4. So I mean, he would be happy to return back. So let's talk about him returning to the movie, and if he does, what would his role be?
Well, that's a good question. And you mentioned the Spider-Man game, which is interesting because his voice is so iconic, so distinct, that if he's not in that role, it's going to be hard to find a replacement for him, to find someone who can meet up to that standard. And
Mm-hmm.
so I think that kind of gives him a really big one up on anyone else who's trying for that role. No, so that makes me think that he will be in the next movie.
And what do you think his role would be? Because a lot of people have been saying that he could be the setup to the Sinister Six, and I think people said that's his role in the comics. I'm not 100% sure on that. I haven't really read a lot of the comic books, but
What is the Sinister Six?
the Sinister Six is a bunch of villains that teamwork together. It's like Suicide Squad, but they team up together to take down Spider-Man. It's like they're like all Spider-Man's villains in the past. Like it could be a lot of villains like Vulture, Scorpion, which those two we already have mentioned, but Mysterio is also in one of those lineups. But maybe the lineups will be different in the MCU's Sinister Six. Um,
Well, are we talking spoilers here?
uh, let's try not to keep it spoiler. To. I would love to talk spoilers because it might make it easier, but who knows? There's some people that haven't even seen a lot of the MCU movies.
Okay, because I'm just thinking Far From Home and Venom, and that those kind of things of who could be in it based on what happens in those movies.
The 2015 Fantastic Four movie, a movie that a lot of people disliked, and so the director has came out and said that he regret casting one of the actors as Sue. And honestly, I don't think it was the acting in that movie. I think all actors in that movie, besides the one that played Doom, that was probably the only bad casting in that movie. But everyone in their movie did their job. I think they could, if they got a better script and better directing, it could have do much more better than it was. So I kind of I don't really agree with this director because he just goes on a lot about like just disliking this actress that really didn't do a whole lot wrong. And so I don't know. Did you see the Fantastic Four that came out back in 2015?
I did not, thankfully, not another Thor: Dark World kind of movie, which I'm grateful for. But I did hear about Sue. That's Storm, isn't she?
Yeah, Sue. No, Sue. Uh, no, Sue's the Sue Storm.
Oh,
I was thinking of a different. I was thinking of Storm from X-Men. Yeah.
oh, okay. Yeah, it is a little unfortunate that we have this whitewashing in films with, not only African Americans but also Asian films where they have white actors portrayed, and it is unfortunate that directors tend to lean towards the more Hollywood superstars that have fair skin.
Hmm.
But like you mentioned, the directing was great. There was nothing wrong with the acting, well, except for Toon apparently. But yeah, there is a difference with the skin color of the actor that affects the movie.
Well, I don't have any. I've been saying that I don't have any problems with the acting or the actress. I think she could have pulled off a great job if it was better directing.
So you think it was the directing?
Yes, 100% the directing, 100% the writing. I mean, we see all of these other actresses or actors and actresses and other movies, and they do better than what this movie has been because, the director, didn't really try and the sets were awful and the story was just terrible. I mean, I fell asleep in that movie. So I didn't see it in theaters, so I rented it on Redbox when it first came out on DVD and Blu-ray, and I fell asleep like 10 minutes in. Like
Nice.
that's how bad it is. And so I had to when I woke up, I'm like, crap, I got to rewatch it now. And so, and I just really disliked it. I mean, that besides the acting, the story was awful. There was hardly any action in the movie. So I blame this. So in this scenario, I blame the writer. I blame the directing. Um, because they were trying to be like DC, where they're trying to be funny and dark. Or at least it feels like that because the movie is really dark where you can't see anything. And so,
Yeah, that's annoying. And moving off from the MCU a little bit, I personally don't think that DC does a good job of combining funny and dark. They do have a few really good films, but
yeah. Well,
they're better in their shows.
I think when the DCU's movies are good is when they're dark. Like for example, Joker, which people really, freaked out about because of how dark it was. I kind of like that movie. I'm I I mean, it's something that we don't get a lot these days. And so and there will be a question coming up in the next episode that involves the same talk, but like movies now these days are kind of not, they're like bringing the bar a little bit down on how, you know, what's the word for it? Like, how dark it can be and how gritty it can be. And so I think that could ruin a lot of movies. Like, if we see the Batman movies that's coming up right now, it's supposed to be a detective movie, which people are really disappointed in. I don't mind that. I'm just hoping that they keep true to Batman, and and when if we see a little bit more of the dark side of Batman, like we saw with Ben Affleck's Batman, because I actually really liked his Batman when he was dark. Like even Christopher's Batman was pretty good in the Dark Knight trilogy.
Yeah,
So,
Dark Knight Trilogy is when Batman really hit its stride.
mhm. and I don't, and at that time, I don't think Batman was a really popular character. And
When Christian Bale was doing it,
well, no, like just in general, I don't think people really cared for Batman. I think people cared a little bit more about Superman than Batman, because that was like, no, well, not the first Batman movie, but at least the first type of serious Batman movie. Um,
maybe it definitely wasn't the first
well,
Batman
yeah,
movie. It had
no,
weird
we
Batman
had
movies
we
earlier.
had we had Batman and Robin, which I still haven't watched. Hopefully, I never need to watch.
When was that made?
I think 1970s,
Oh wow,
80s. I can look, but yeah, I mean, well, I guess we kind of was. I had something else. I had something to go forward on that, but I can't remember what I was going to go on about. Um, well, I guess speaking of DCU characters, one actor got fired earlier this week, like literally actually 2 days ago. Um, I don't know how to say his name. What's it? How do you say his name? Hartley Sawyer. I don't know how to say his name, but
um, dude who got kicked off Flash.
yeah, the guy that got fired from Flash because he was making racist comments.
I think
But
it's Hartley Sawyer.
swear, yeah. And so if you guys don't know, he's the one that played what's 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 his character's name? They call him Rubber Man or something like that. But the another version of um, the one of the Fantastic Four members. I can't remember his character's name, but I
Oh, the
mean,
leader guy who's stretches and stuff.
I can't remember any of the characters' names apparently. But so yeah, which I mean, I saw some of his comments. Most of them were sexist comments, not racist comments. So, I mean, in general, I'm not gonna say any of the comments or get into detail of the any comments. I would like to try to stay away from that. If you guys want to see what he said, you can easily look it up, and there's a couple of photos on the internet, and you probably can still find them. I guarantee Twitter or him hasn't taken it down. But which kind of sucks because I actually really like where his character was going. In some certain parts, I didn't really know that well of the actor, and that's the thing about filming, like the industry. You don't really know these actors in person. You don't know who they really are, and so like for example, Robert Downey Jr. You didn't know. I don't know if you knew, but he was like before Iron Man, he was like a drug addict and like and he was an alcoholic, and so and at that time Hollywood gave him a second chance. Now these days, Hollywood's not going to give you any chance, especially what's going on with all this movement and protests and stuff. You you can't say stuff like that anymore. I mean, it's you're this guy just basically ruined his whole entire acting career because of it.
Right.
You're he's rarely gonna get a job, at least in a couple years, maybe in a couple years. But right now, he's not gonna have a job. But I don't know. Have you been watching the Flash or any of the CW shows? Um,
I have. I mean, Both with Arrow and Flash, though, I stopped watching about the third season. It just got a
Yeah,
little too repetitive, too predictable.
yeah, and
But the first part was so good.
mhm. But season 5, season 6 of The Flash kind of got a little bit better. But yeah, I can, yeah, I kind of stopped as well. At least watching it live, I would binge watch them and on Netflix,
Nice.
I mean, like, kind of, it's just kind of sucks because now, I obviously post about this on Twitter and my Instagram. And I'm like, wow, that's awesome, great. Well, let's come up with recasting theories now. And so, and like now, I think they're gonna recast his character because you can't just not recast someone because they're recasting Batwoman. Well, no, actually, they're not recasting Batwoman. They're continuing on the series without Batwoman in a TV show that's called Batwoman, which is
That's
whatever.
weird.
Because did you hear about the actress quit from playing the
No.
character? Yeah, the actress quit because no one liked no one thought that she was like lesbian or whatever. I don't know what she was because apparently Batwoman's like transgender or something. I don't know. Um, but it's the it's stupid. Like CW, I mean, I guarantee CW is just I guarantee they didn't care, but they had to fire him because of what's going on. So they don't get their studio ran down. So they just had to do it. And so, I mean, if I mean, it's kind of a little insane what people think and just say. I mean, well, I guess if what do you think about what I don't know if you saw any of his posts or anything like that, but I don't know. What's your point of view?
To I didn't see any specific posts, but it is fascinating to me the power of words and just knowing that his posts from before he was casted on the CW um, came back to him multiple years later, and that I mean, like you mentioned, wrecked his career, wrecked his Hollywood career. I mean, I don't think that he's ever going to come back, honestly, even after a couple of years. But it's just very unfortunate and crazy to imagine that anything you post, Twitter, message, Instagram, Snapchat, any of that thing, it's 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 out there. It's in the cloud. It's
Hmm.
other people can find it and use it on you unless you're wise with what you say and going through that filter of, okay, do I want people to look back on this and see me as a positive character or as someone who I don't want to be seen as?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, like it's you just can't be really I mean, back then you'd probably get away with it because people didn't really care, but then like but now people are becoming very sensitive these days. That's why we're not getting a lot of dark movies or like like how horror movies kind of like died, like at least like scariness, and it's just like cliches and jump scares because people just apparently can't handle a good a good horror film anymore because they think we're in a different world, which we are. I mean, 20 years is a lot, but I mean, it's just like I mean, times change, and you need to know where you are in that time period and make sure you watch what you say and watch your surroundings because who knows what can happen. I mean,
Yeah, I'm not sure if there's less horror movies now. I'm honestly not interested in that. But what do you think was the switch between less horror movies now than there was before?
well, what I mean by is like, so like the Conjuring movies, like,
Not familiar with those.
well, so the Conjuring came back out, well, came out I think in 2010, 11. But so then they started having So and that was like the scariest horror movie of all time, at least in the 2000s. But so then over time they started dying like cliches because people were complaining how too greedy were they, and like how like people would have nightmares, and like and not just like they just can't handle it. I mean, like that's how horror movies got to these points. Like, we have good horror movies once in a while, like Us, and like a couple of others that come out later on. But and in general, movies are just becoming like too kid friendly, in my opinion.
Mm,
Like they're trying to, because with the MCU being all happy and laugh, it's not like the MCU doesn't have any dark moments, but they're trying to be like that because MCU makes a lot of money. I mean, so people are trying to jump onto that train and be like, no, you be your own train, be your own thing, basically. So.
your own train. I like that. Yeah, it's interesting how Marvel. I mean, they target the kids
Mhm.
and the parents. I mean, obviously that it's fun for families to watch, but these other films that are coming out, that there is um, some wisdom in their part in terms of making more money, to have these horror movies, to have these things that give kids nightmares, so that they're more memorable, and they'll throw the sex scene in there to make it more views, more watches, just to boost
Yeah.
that money. But
No, that's just cliche stuff. Like, oh, if you have sex, well, they're dead. And what happens? Who usually have sex in movies? They die. I mean, like, it's just horror movies have became like cliches, and that's why people, don't like them like they used to be. Like, what's a good horror movie? I can't remember it, but I mean, like, horror movies have died after um, you know, after the 90s. And The Conjuring kind of brought back, but with their recent like Annabelle movie, it's just really not doing it well. So hopefully like the next Conjuring, they're supposed to come with another one, The Conjuring 3. Hopefully it does well. Um, but yeah, I mean, we talked about what I really wanted to talk about. I mean, like, we mostly talked about actors this episode, so which is kind of funny. But I mean, yeah, it's like, but coming back to the Flash and uh, Hartley, I can't. Actors have weird names, but it's. I mean, I hope he can change his life around and get a second chance. I mean, but like the stuff that he said, it's like, really, how does that come into your mind? It's like, what makes you want to tweet that, and how how does that make how how does that make you think people will think that's funny? It's just like, it's like really cringeworthy comments. Like, he's talking about like, it's like it's more sexual comments than racist comments. So like, at least from the ones I've seen. So, but in general, you can't say sexual comments or racist comments in general. And like, just, I mean, if you have something to say that it isn't really meant to be said, mostly keep it to yourself. Or if you have friends that don't mind it, then maybe talk to them. But in general, if it's racist or sexist, just don't say anything. Keep your mouth quiet and just move on, because we don't need more crap than that we already have right now. And so, but yeah, that's basically all I wanted to talk about. But anyway, yeah, do you have any more things to go on to that?
sure, yeah, and I totally agree with what you're saying. I mean, the whole idea of having a foundation of friends who you can trust, who you can come to and say, hey, I'm having this legitimate problem with whatever it is happening, and um, to have those friends that you can trust, and just maybe it's prayer to God to just say, hey, I'm struggling with this, and it's much better to go to him or to close trusted friends than to post it on social media and just hope that people take it well, because chances are that they're not.
Thank you for Martin for joining me this episode. This was a lot of fun. Sorry if we didn't get to talk about some other stuff. Not a lot of stuff really happened. We mostly talked about actors and all that, and like movie careers and basically like that little MCU and DCU there. But not a lot of stuff. But hopefully that you guys enjoyed. This one was a very short episode. But hopefully the next episode is a little bit longer. We'll try to talk about the PS5 and a little bit more stuff. We have a lot to talk about in that episode. I can't wait for it. But anyway, thank you guys very much for joining me in this episode. Bye guys.